guys, welcome back or welcome to my channel. In today's video I'm finally going to be going over how I got all 8s and 9s in my GCSEs. So this video is very late, about 5 or 6 months late. I'm part of the year group that got their results in August 2020, so I didn't actually sit any exams. But I will be going through how I revised for my mocks, because obviously what I got in my mocks was a big factor in what I ended up getting in August. So I'm just going to be talking you through all of the techniques I did, online resources I used, how I kind of went about making my flashcards, and hopefully they can help you. There isn't really anything groundbreaking. I don't think any of these revision tips are really new. They've all been pretty thoroughly explained before on other people's channels, but I'll go through them anyways just in case you are wondering. So I'm just going to get started with English Lit. If you want to skip to a specific subject, then I'll have all of the timestamps left in the description box below, and that way you can just skip straight ahead. But for now, I'm going to talk about English Lit. So if you've been on my channel for a while, you might know that I did post a how I revised for English literature quite a while back, but I privated it because I didn't like it. It was badly explained. So I'm going to try and explain it a bit better in this video. Basically, in year 9, year 10, I always got 6s in English essays, and I really wanted to get higher than a 6. And so I made up, well, I think I made up, I haven't seen anyone else do this, I made up this English literature revision method, and I think it works really well for me. For English Lit, I would take a flashcard, and at the top I would write, I don't know, volume 1, act 1, scene 3, wherever the quote I was going to write was going to come from, I'd write it up there, because I think my teacher said that knowing where your quote came from is very high level, because obviously it is very tedious to remember where every single quote came from, but if you can do it, then that does show the examiner you know your stuff. And then in the middle of one side of the flashcard I would have my entire quote, and then I would underline individual bits of the quote that I thought were extremely good to analyze, and that I could pull out of the main quote and embed back into my essay, because that is another very high level thing you can do. Then on the back, corresponding to each part of the quote that I'd underlined, I'd analyze those bits, and that's where I would use all of my key terminology like hyperbole, chiasmus, polyptoton, all those very high level things. I'd make sure to include those in my analysis, so that when I was writing an essay, I could remember the quote, remember which bit I'd underlined, and then remember why I'd underlined it. Another thing that was useful about doing it this way is that I could very easily test myself. So I could either look at the front side of the card and think about why I'd underlined certain bits, try analyze it, and then check if I'd analyzed it the way I originally had. And even if I analyzed it wrong, I would add in that new analysis, because it's just kind of a way to get your brain going and thinking about all the different ways you could analyze that part of the quote. Or I could read the analysis on the back, which only has very limited bits of the quote, and then try say the whole quote out loud. I think those are very useful for me. I went up from a 6 in year 10 in English to a 9 at the end of year 11, and also throughout year 11. So those cards were definitely helpful for me, and I've never seen anyone else do them, so hopefully if you want to try those out, you will, and they'll help you out as well. So for English language, honestly, I really didn't do anything. I basically just very briefly before the exam, I just looked up when you'd use a semicolon, when you'd use a colon, the rules for that, because then in my creative writing I could add that in. I think I did better in my mock than I did in my last ever assessment I did in lockdown for English language. In that, we had to do creative writing, and I thought I would just experiment, because I was it's my last ever English language piece, I'm just going to do something crazy. And I wrote it in second person, and I don't know why, but I think that knocked my grade down to an 8, because in the mock I basically got a 9, and then I got an 8 in the end, so I don't really know. I think that was probably why. I think that you was just too repetitive, saying you over and over and over again. But the thing I did do for section A, I think it is, of the English language, which is more comprehension, I made flashcards with each of the papers, each of the questions, and then I listed out the things that they wanted you to say, because English language, or at least for the example that I did, which I think was AQA, it's very much about just hitting the points that the exam board wants you to make. So for example, for the first question of paper 1, the question asks you to list 4 things about something, and I just wrote some key points about what I needed to do for that question. So I said, even though it's a list, the sentence must make grammatical sense. I just continued to do that for each of the questions, and that way I would just know exactly what I had to do for each of those. Next we have maths, and also I guess biology, physics, chemistry, because honestly for all those 4 subjects I basically did the same thing. I just made flashcards. So on the front I would have the factual information, on the back I would do questions so I could test myself, and then I would just do practice papers over and over again. So even for maths, I made flashcards, which I don't know if that will work for some people. Honestly, maths and I just never ever got along. Also for sciences, rather than maths, I did a lot of blurting from my flashcard. That was probably the most common technique I used. For sciences, I have so many notebooks just filled with like random blurts that I did over the years. So yes, that was very, very useful for me. And then we have history. So similar to the sciences, I did use flashcards as well. It's ridiculous how many history flashcards I have. There's no way I would be able to learn all of those. I didn't even finish the Cold War topic like by March, and my exams would have been in like May, June, which is quite scary. I think there's way too much content for history. Like, there's no way I would have been able to learn 4 textbooks worth of information in that time. Obviously, even though I did flashcards and blurting and they really, really, really helped me, there's just no way I could have done it. Although in saying that, for my mocks, basically, we did 1 Germany paper, 1 Elizabeth paper, and for Elizabeth we'd only really done like half the content, so that was quite easy to revise. But I didn't do any revision for my Germany paper because I was so focused on other subjects like so the sciences, maths. I was doing so much maths revision because I was terrified I was going to fail that. And it was the night before my Germany paper and I was like, literally haven't done anything, I'm gonna fail. I tried to do some blurting, but blurting is quite a slow process. Even though you're trying to write stuff out quick, there's so much to do, like it is quite difficult to do it in a short amount of time. So what I did was I was kind of like very desperate looking for things I could do, and I went on Seneca, and that saved my history mock. I would not have known anything going into it if I had not done Seneca. Basically, if you don't know what Seneca is, it's an online website and they have basically almost every exam board for every subject, for every topic, every paper, and you can just like go through their little like text and then you fill in questions based on what you've read, you watch videos, and it is so good. Well, at least it works for me. I know some people hate Seneca, but I really liked it when I tried it, and I just can't tell you enough how much that saved my history paper, because the amount of things I learnt in like, I don't know, I did about an hour of Seneca and I learnt like the whole Germany spec, so it was very useful. If I hadn't have used that, then I definitely would not have gotten what I did in the Germany mock. I still didn't do very well. I think I got like 60% or something, which I definitely could have gotten better if I actually revised, but having not like revised at all, that is pretty good. And then finally we have Spanish and French, the 2 languages that I took. So for Spanish and French, I mainly did flashcards with grammar, which I would just study, go through whenever I had spare time, and also flashcards with vocab, which I'd make kind of every time we had a vocab test. I would just go through the vocab list, make the flashcards, learn those for the vocab test. I would really study hard for vocab tests because I knew they would add up over time. And I guess those flashcards did very much help for listening, reading, writing, because I just needed to know the words and know the structures. But for speaking, what I mainly did was I would record voice memos of my questions that my teachers had given us that would probably come up in an exam, and then I would record every single one of those questions as a separate voice memo, and then I would just randomly like scroll through my like endless list of voice memos and then click a random question and it would just play. I wouldn't know what it was going to be, so it was unexpected, and then I would just try and answer as best as I could, and if I couldn't, then I'd just keep trying and trying until I got a kind of perfect answer. And then because I'd done that so many times, when my teacher asked me a question in the exam, I kind of just tried to think back to what I did when I was practicing by myself, and then I kind of like basically roughly mimic my answer that I had done when I was by myself to my teacher, if that makes sense. I did also do GCSE drama, which if you guys know, I did not very much enjoy that, but I did revise quite a lot for it because I knew that I didn't enjoy it, so I had to put in a lot more effort to kind of get a better grade in it. So I'm not going to be covering how I revised for GCSE drama today. That's going to be in like a couple videos time, just because I was like planning this video out And GCSE drama, I have a lot of stuff to say about how to revise for that because the exams are so specific in what they want you to write. So I'm going to be doing a whole video on that in a couple weeks, as I said. And other than that, that is how I revise. Of course, also I did so many past papers for everything. Physics and maths tutors are really good, or I just went onto the exam board that I was doing and the subject and did the practice papers from there. So just put in the hard work and remember that you can take days off. Like, it's okay not to study every single day. Just find what works for you, and hopefully you found something in these tips that helped you. And I'm wishing you all the best, guys. Have a great rest of the week, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye, guys!